To this story now, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana and the Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago briefed the media in Cape Town following the B20 and G20 finance track meetings. The meetings form part of a series of ministerial and working group discussions scheduled throughout the year. This is, of course, ahead of the G20 Leaders Summit in November. Minister Godongwana says deputies held robust and constructive discussions that include, among others, international taxation. He says they'll issue a chair's summary outlining the discussions. Our reporter Nosipho Radebe is covering the story for us and has invited Minister Godongwana for some insights on this. Good afternoon, Nosipho, and it's over to you.
Yes, good afternoon or good evening there, Mfundo, and to all the viewers at home. Indeed, we got that statement issued, the outcomes, or rather the conclusion then, of the G20 finance tracks meeting. And of course, we have the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, here to just sort of outline what we heard today in that press briefing. And I turn to the Minister now. Of course, thank you so much, Minister, for your time today. But as we said, you know, no communique issued in terms of consensus, but that's not unusual. A chairman's statement issued for us today.
Yes, it's not unusual. We've had it for the first time in Indonesia in 2022 and in India in 2023. So it's not something, it was occasioned by different events then. So now we do have a similar exercise, so it's not something new. It's standard. Then, as the chair, I had to issue as my own understanding of the discussion, which, by the way, was overwhelmingly supported.
Indeed, overwhelmingly supportive of South Africa's G20 presidency. But Minister, also talk to us, because one of the questions raised today was the issue, of course, of the US's sort of engagement with the G20 finance tracks meeting. Give us your reflections on that.
It's not my way of dealing with the issue. I deal with substantive issues than individual countries. There are, of course, certain substantive issues where we couldn't find each other. Among other things is climate finance and other areas, so we couldn't find each other. And as a result, we had to issue a chairperson statement.
In terms of the sort of, we were expecting to see U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, but he wasn't here. But you had remarks earlier with regards to the U.S. delegation and their engagement in the G20.
Yes, the chair of the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States was here, Paul. The Secretary Treasurer was planning to come. He sent a note verbal, and with all the arrangements that were made. But Mr. Trump organized his first cabinet yesterday, and he had to pull back and go to the first cabinet of the United States.
All right, and then finally, just your remarks then at the conclusion then of this G20. Would you describe it as a success?
The first meeting of the G20 like this, when your first presidents, the first thing you do, you outline your program of work in terms of your priorities. So the test for you is to what extent our member countries are overwhelmingly supporting your program, and that's what has happened. Over the past 2 days, the program we've drafted and the priorities we've adopted have overwhelmingly been supported by the member countries. In that sense, we call this a success.
All right, we'll leave it there, Minister. Thank you, of course, for your time this evening.
Thank you.
All right, that was Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana there, just giving us the reflections at the sort of conclusion today of the G20 finance tracks meetings here at the Cape Town Convention Centre. Over to you, Mfundo, back in studio.
All right, thank you very much. That's SABC News reporter there, Nosipho Radebe, out in Cape Town for us.